Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This episode features the highlights of the conversation with 2010 Van Buren graduate Michael Flanagan, a civil engineer for the city of Thornton, Colorado. The highlights focus on the busyness of a typical day for Michael as a civil engineer, how he chose to become an engineer and specialize in civil engineering, and how he decided to specialize even more as a geotechnical engineer. If you want to learn more about Michael's career journey, you can always watch or listen to his full interview. And if you find this podcast useful, please share it with someone else who could benefit from it. Enjoy the highlights, and I'll see you here next Monday for a brand new episode. Have a great week.
What I do is any private money that comes into the city, someone wants to build a new warehouse, a new restaurant, a big housing subdivision, any of that, the developer has responsibilities to build the public infrastructure and follow our standards and our city code requirements to essentially service anything that they're bringing in. So obviously, when a new residential subdivision is constructed, you need water and sanitary sewer and drainage systems that address all of that coming in. So it's the developer's responsibility to construct all of that. As a part of that, my job is to review the consulting engineer for the developer does the design. I review everything to make sure that it meets our standards, our city code, state and federal requirements. More generally, just that it's best practices in engineering, that they're not accidentally copying information that doesn't necessarily apply, or once in a while, because I worked in the private sector as well, you got to start with something. So like template information that might be another city or something like that. My job is to make sure all of the information they're providing us is applicable and correct and uses all the best practices, meets all of our requirements, and generally is not going to cause issues that then our infrastructure department has to correct in the future. Because what we don't want to happen is that some new development comes in, everybody's excited, new restaurant or something, and then in 5 years it becomes a huge expense for the city because something went wrong in design. Right. So generally I partner, and we try to act as partners. Sometimes developers or consulting engineers probably don't think of us as partners, more as roadblocks to the development process, I'm sure. But we try to partner to end up at the end of the day with the best product, the best development that is of mutual benefit to the current citizens, the future citizens, and the city in general. I had the typical, you're good at math and science, you should look into engineering. I feel like that's a very common story, a very common way to get into engineering. I didn't really know what kind of engineering I wanted to get into. I kind of knew that construction was interesting to me. When I did shadow day, I shadowed an architect. I found out that was quite a bit too artsy for me. I was never good at the drawing side of art. I was more into music. But as a senior, that was basically where it stopped. I knew that I probably wanted to get into engineering, and Didn't know where to go from there. They have the first year engineering program at Cincinnati. Engineering, no matter what major you're in, you're pretty much going to take the same classes your first year: calculus, physics, probably some sort of English class, a writing class. Because of that, Cincinnati offers, for either you didn't get in because aerospace engineering, for instance, is extremely competitive. So maybe you didn't get into engineering for aerospace specifically. Or like me, you don't understand what the nuances are between mechanical engineering and biomedical engineering, or civil engineering and architectural engineering. They're very close. So what I did was the first year engineering program is essentially undecided, but in engineering. So you know engineering is what you want to do, but you don't really know more than that. What I had was an extra class. It was just, I think it was 1 hour each week. And they brought in, for the whole semester, they brought in all the different programs and seniors or people working in the field to basically explain exactly what you're doing here. Honestly, it's all right. This week is biomedical and mechanical. Like, explain to us what those are, what student groups exist in that field specifically. Aerospace had some sort of like Formula One car that a go-kart that they were building as a student group, and they'd race it in a competition against other universities every year. Civil engineering had a concrete canoe competition. So interesting stuff like that. But as I was introduced to those different fields, I realized I started comparing things after civil engineering to civil engineering because that was sparking my interest the most. So then I internally transferred, I applied, but it was a very simple process. My geotechnical specialty, I kind of specialized primarily in geotechnical and then a bit in construction because that's where I was at the time. Geotechnical engineering is one of the 5 specialty areas of civil engineering. There's structural, which is buildings like above ground, especially like buildings and bridges. Transportation, which is design of roads, highways, traffic, congestion, all of that stuff. Water environmental, which is design of water, wastewater, drainage, all of that stuff. And then construction, which is basically your materials and your methods to take all of the aforementioned stuff and actually make it a reality, take it from paper. So out of those 5, geotechnical was my interest area. And at the time, I dealt with investigating the soil and the rock under the ground to then take that and provide recommendations or design for things like building foundations, retaining walls, pavements, dams and levees. I did a lot of work in the renewable sector, so doing solar panel foundations, wind turbine foundations, and basically taking samples of soils or rock, depending on where you are in the country or locally. You can have a lot of variation. Basically taking that and trying to dial in on this. If you dig 3 feet and you put your foundation right there, how much load, how much pressure can that foundation take?
If you liked this Joust About Careers episode, you can explore previous episodes and highlights to learn about even more careers of Van Buren graduates. To be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with us, and we hope you will continue to prepare for your future by learning just about careers.